or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
Okay, question of the day. What do UFOs, ghosts, breathwork, and psychedelics have in common? Find out at the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through 3rd in Wisconsin, the Midwest premier event all about consciousness, life's mysteries, and all the stuff that blows your mind. 4 stages alive at the same time with world-class experts and tons of hands-on experiences. Hosted by Jimmy Church, you'll be doing UFO Skywatches with Chris Bledsoe, workshops with Dr. Diane Hennessy, Lidu and Dahlia from the Telepathy Tapes, a group quantum hypnosis by Sarah Bressman Cosme. You'll learn telekinesis, telepathy, dowsing rods, plus God helmet experiences, a real live seance, and live performances galore. Whether you're brand new to this world or knee-deep in the rabbit hole, this is the place to explore the unseen, the unexplained, and the undeniable at the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through 3rd. Curious? Learn more at contactmodalitiesxpo.com.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Tonight, cloudy with a low of 31, then Wednesday, a chance of rain and snow with a high of 43. The Great Wall has been your home for Chinese favorites since 1981. Don't miss the sesame chicken, mushu pork with Chinese pancakes, or Peking duck. Stop in at the restaurant on France Avenue and 45th Street along the Minneapolis Edina City line, or check them out at greatwallrestaurant.us.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host, guest, random reptoid, or chupacabra may not necessarily reflect those of AM 950 Radio, its affiliates, or its sponsors. Now, it's time to step into the unknown. There are things people experience but never talk about. A shadow moving in the corner, flickering of the lights, a disembodied voice. We invite you to talk with us, share your story, share your experience, because this isn't just your story, this is our story. This is GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun.
And this is GhostBox Radio on AM 950, where every night we talk about the paranormal, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. My name is Greg Bakun. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's always so great to bring back friends for the show that do some awesome work. And tonight, we're going to get right to it because author Tim Rayborn, we've had on a number of times with, great books with topics that, and I was thinking about this today, and I want to say this, hopefully it comes off as positive and not as negative. Tim writes books about subjects I never knew I wanted to know about. That's kind of the way I think of it. Because tonight we're gonna talk about a book that we actually meant to talk about it in a more timely time, but then I had flu and stuff and things didn't really work out. Tonight we're talking about the scary book of Valentine's Day lore. And this is, we know that it's the last day of March. We know that Valentine's Day was some time ago. But the thing is that, first of all, you could just rename it the Scary Book of Valentine's Day. Doesn't have to be a lore. I mean, some of us are kind of adverse to relationships at the moment. You can call it Scary Book of Relationships. I think, well, maybe not. But, there's something we could talk about at some point. I could already see. I see Tim on his video screen, and I think he's appalled by my existence at the moment, and that's quite all right. I don't blame him. Tim, welcome to GhostBox Radio. I don't mean to change what the book is or stuff. You're talking to, unfortunately, a relationship cynic at the moment, and hopefully that all turns around.
Yeah,
for my own life, I hope it does, but that's where we're at the moment.
I mean, realistically, it is called the Scary Book of Valentine's Day, and I'll get into it. It could just be called the Scary Book of Love, or the Scary Book of. It could very much easily be called that. So that's good for any time of year, right? Right now, we're approaching the Scary Book of tax deadlines. Is really more the coming up now. So
That's funny. Yeah, that's coming up rapidly. Yeah, no, this is, I mean, but and like I said, I hope you understood what I meant. That
Yeah.
you
No.
write stuff that I didn't know I wanted to know about.
I mean, I didn't know I wanted to know about it either, so it's fine. In fact, well, this book came about actually because it's called The Scary Book of Valentine's Day Lore, and it's a sequel, if you will, to the Scary Book of Christmas Lore that HarperCollins published. And after that came out and had some success, they actually reached out to me and asked if I wanted to do another one, and they had already chosen the topic. It wasn't up to me. They said, "Hey, would you be willing to do one about Valentine's Day?" So I thought, yeah, that could be fun. That could be creepy and weird and horrifying, in its own way.
Yeah.
So, we all have horror stories to tell. And so I started digging into stuff, and to my disappointment, one thing I didn't find were a lot of monsters. Now, Scary Book of Christmas Lore is packed with monsters. You've got Krampus and Frau Perkta and the Night Hunt and the Wild Hunt and, Belsnickel and all these amazing grotesque ogres and goblins and witches and stuff. Sadly, there isn't really a lot of that in terms of like Valentine's Day and love lore. As I kind of looked around stuff, it was so like, what am I going to do here? So I don't have like, the love troll or, the love goblin or whatever, So I had to take a different approach, and I looked at mythology, I looked at history, and then also ghosts and urban legends and contemporary practices as well. And I found all sorts of good stuff in there. So yeah, we're good. We've got plenty of great stories and plenty of interesting things to talk about. A lot of them don't have that much to do with Valentine's Day per se, but they are more about just general sort of stories of love gone wrong and that sort of thing. So they fit with the theme of the book. So that was my approach that time. So yeah, this could really be done at any time of year. It just happens to be called the Valentine's Day lore book.
And it's interesting because I was thinking when you were talking about this, I would you say, especially with the type of books that you've been writing, that pretty much anything that we celebrate today has kind of a real dark origin to it, and multiple origins that kind of
multiple origins, not all of them dark, but certainly there are. Absolutely. There's also, when you dig back far enough, you'll find stuff associated with almost anything, as far as that goes. So sure, even the most innocuous things like Valentine's Day or Christmas, you can scratch beneath the surface and you'll find some horrors buried in the earth underneath the underneath the veneer of respectability.
Underneath the Victorian Christmas tree, that there's darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think about with Valentine's Day, I think, even just stuff that's meant to be kind of cute, like Cupid, for example. A cherub is actually, to me, a rather frightening sort of entity.
Well, the Cupid itself, is the Roman name Cupid, is actually a Romanized version of the Greek god Eros, and Eros was a pretty frightening sort of character in old Greek mythology. He did make people fall in love, but he could make humans fall in love with humans or with gods or with beasts, or gods with gods or gods with humans. And he was considered, an awesome power because people could be driven mad by his efforts. He was the son of Aphrodite, logically enough. But there's other versions of him that have him being like one of the primordial gods, even like older than the Titans. There's almost like this Lovecraftian cosmic horror aspect to him he was very frightening to a lot of people. There's various myths, that are different according to different regions and such. But yeah, he was not just the chubby little baby that we see in Renaissance paintings, shooting arrows and such. It was often vengeful, vindictive. It was often, it was cursing. There was all these sorts of things. You wanted to be very, very careful because the fine line between love and madness was something that people very acutely felt. And so Eros, where we get our word erotic, from, it was a personification of that. And he was a personification of love madness in some ways as well. So yeah, if you were shot by that, you could go mad. You could kill yourself. There's any number of dark things that could happen there, and they weren't good, a lot of them. And this affected even gods. He had the power over gods with this as well, which made him incredibly powerful. Over time, the Romans took him over, called him Cupid. He had a similar sort of MO, if you will. But in the Middle Ages, he kind of got downgraded to just a generic figure called the God of Love, which you find in particularly in French literature from the 13th and 14th centuries. You'll find the God of Love is this fellow that strolls around gardens with his little arrows and such. And then by the Renaissance, he got downgraded even further to the little chubby baby with the wings that flies around, and then that ended up on Valentine's Day cards eventually. So he kind of got downgraded from eldritch horror to chubby baby with a toy bow. So it's like a Tyrannosaurus Rex going down to a chicken. It was kind of it's the same kind of progression there.
How do you think? Because when you say that, I find that it feels like that we rework some of these entities. I don't think it's purpose. I don't think anyone really. It just kind of evolves that way. How much of that reflects what was going on in civilization at the time? I mean, because obviously, originally with Eurus being able to manipulate even gods, I mean, the idea of multiple gods was a very big thing at that time. And so it seems like there is like a revisitation and readaptation of some of these entities based on what's going on in the world.
Yeah, I think in the case of things like Eros and Pan and some of the more wild ecstatic gods, particularly from the Greeks and such, they were downgraded to demons. They were not considered gods anymore. And so if they were demons, they did not have the power that the one true God of Christianity had. Therefore, they could be overcome. And I think it was an unconscious sort of downgrading from there. It was like, well, they're not actually gods. They're just demons. And then over time, the demons became just sort of mischievous sprites, and all with the idea that there's only one supreme power, and these powers have no hold over us as long as we believe in the one supreme power. So I think Christianity had a lot to do with that as well. They were sort of downgraded, even ridiculed after a while. They went from being frightful entities to things that you needed to be careful of, to things that were you would almost mock and ridicule, to things that didn't exist. But then by the Renaissance, with the rebirth, as the name implies, of interest in Greco-Roman culture, they started bringing these back, but I think viewed through a new lens. We wanted to kind of honor these ideas and myths and things, but kind of recast them in ways that were more appropriate to the culture and the time. So yeah, that would be my take on how they get downgraded over time.
And in the case of Cupid, as time is, like you said, little chubby kid with wings, as Christianity never took in Cupid. Cupid was never any sort of angel or anything, right?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. So yeah,
couldn't even get into that club.
No.
Well, and I think it's also interesting, you mentioned about how they're talking about love and madness, and I think it sounded, the way you're talking about kind of sounds like to a very extreme way of it, but I mean, I think there is some truth, and this isn't the cynic Greg talking about, love, but I mean, I do think that there is a sort of, especially how deep in love you fall with somebody, madness, not necessarily where you are violent or anything, but it's a stronghold for sure.
Yeah, and it has a hold on people. It kind of gets you and doesn't let go. And I think there was a very real sense of that. So I think these myths personified that sort of that danger that can be very, very ecstatic and wonderful, but also frightening. And I think that's what so much of these ancient spirits and gods personify, are those kinds of they're personifications of those very powerful emotions.
Well, and are these all like, kind of like with everything, and the one thing that we've learned from you over the past couple of years that we've been talking with you, that so much of this stuff is these are lessons for us or whomever paying attention to learn, but used as a vehicle for storytelling as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think you can definitely make that argument. I think a lot of these are meant to be teaching sort of things, more morality lessons and that sort of thing, and they're explanations on the one hand of why are things the way they are, but because they help people to make sense of things, but they're also meant almost like fables. They're meant to be teaching things, how real people believe these things to be. we don't know. Some people did, some people didn't. That's the has always been in any case. There's always been believers, non-believers, and cynics, and there were certainly people that believed in the reality of these kinds of forces, while others probably thought they were nonsense. So yeah, it's but the stories themselves can live independently of either of those positions.
Well, and you have to think that love is the oldest emotion of all, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just
one of them, yeah,
one of them for sure. I mean, I probably, I mean, yes, there's many, but I like love and anger. Probably
fear is another one. Love, anger, fear, all
sure.
primal. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
incredible, and
kind of all combined. This, you love. This is the story of Eros is a story about a god you actually fear because of what he can do with the power of love. So it's actually a fearful thing. So yeah.
Absolutely incredible. Now, only looking through table of contents here, you put in Henry VIII, Valentine's Day, an official holiday in 1537. So it wasn't Hallmark?
No. Valentine's Day, as we know, it seems to come around probably in the later 1300s, and it might have been Geoffrey Chaucer, author of the Canterbury Tales, that really he mentions it in one of his writings, that it was a day, that it was a time when new flowers were springing and people would send notes of love to each other. The first recognizable Valentine that we have, actually, I think, is a 15th century French letter that someone wrote, and he signed. It was a nobleman that signed it to his wife, and he signed it as "Your Valentine," and that was was kind of sweet. The Valentine himself, of course, Saint Valentine was may have, as the book describes, there may have been two different Valentines, and they were Roman times, Christians in Roman times that both met their ends by being beheaded. So there's that.
Once again, the stuff often doesn't have happy endings to it.
Nor should.
Well, I find it fascinating because, to me, holidays seem to be very contemporary, very modern, only because once again, the cynic in me looks at a lot of this stuff as a way to make money via cards and other things. But going back, I mean, it just, the fact that there is these holidays back in 1300s, it just kind of, it's hard for me to grasp actually how that would work.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think they're an outgrowth of religious holidays. I think a lot of people don't realize that. This is an interesting topic when you get into, if you're looking at let's say medieval England, medieval France, 1300, say, or 1400. The number, the presence of the church in people's lives was so pervasive then that literally about every third or fourth day was some important saint's feast day. And that was the day when you couldn't work. So actually, medieval peasants had more days off than we do now in the modern world. So the idea of these extra festivals was not, unusual to them. They actually had whole spans of time when they weren't allowed to work for various reasons. It wasn't just Sunday. Now, there might be periods when you would work 6 days a week, but there were there were at least, I think, 100 major feast days throughout the year, which was effectively like the weekend that we have now. So they had the same number of times off, and they were throughout the week. They weren't necessarily on Saturday and Sunday, but they had just about as much time off as modern people do. And so the idea of extra holidays honoring saints and such was just it was just a part of the yearly calendar, and that's what you did. February 14th was for Saint Valentine, and it didn't necessarily have an association with love, but that was the day he was martyred, the day his head was cut off. And then later, Chaucer and others kind of associated that with, well, that's the first signs of spring. We're starting to see the snowdrops, the little flowers coming up, and the birds are returning. So why don't we do something more with that? So yeah, it was less of a financial incentive more than an outgrowth of a celebration that was already there. So yeah.
Wow. It's incredible. It's incredible, all of these stories and the backgrounds to it, because you just take it for granted. They've always been there for us. It just, I love that. Tim, what I'd like to do is I'd like to take a break. First of all, I want to remind folks that the book is called The Scary Book of Valentine's Day Lore, 50 Terrifying Tales of Romance from Around the World. And we're going to be taking a break here. When we come back, let's talk about ghosts and urban legends. I mean, after all, it's kind of what this thing is about.
Yeah, we got tons of them.
We got tons of them. This is going to be good stuff. Folks, don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Okay, question of the day. What do UFOs, ghosts, breathwork, and psychedelics have in common? Find out at the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through 3rd in Wisconsin, the Midwest premier event all about consciousness, life's mysteries, and all the stuff that blows your mind. 4 stages alive at the same time with world-class experts and tons of hands-on experiences. Hosted by Jimmy Church, you'll be doing UFO Skywatches with Chris Bledsoe, workshops with Dr. Diane Hennessy, Lidu and Dahlia from the Telepathy Tapes, a group quantum hypnosis by Sarah Bressman Cosme. You'll learn telekinesis, telepathy, dowsing rods, plus God helmet experiences, a real live seance, and live performances galore. Whether you're brand new to this world or knee-deep in the rabbit hole, this is the place to explore the unseen, the unexplained, and the undeniable at the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through 3rd. Curious? Learn more at contactmodalitiesxpo.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had, made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Greg Bakun here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then, climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis' haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information. Greg Bakun here. It's nice to get out of the Twin Cities and take some travel excursion to some great locations. Minnesota has so much to offer, which is why I love traveling down to Wabasha and staying at the historic Anderson House Hotel. Opened in 1856, this beautiful hotel offers comfortable accommodations, has a delicious restaurant, and even a speakeasy in the basement to unwind with a drink. Located next to the Mississippi River and on Main Street, there is a lot of sightseeing and shopping to do too. To get more information, go to theandersonhousehotel.com. You know, we talk about it in the commercial break, and I think this is something that everybody who has an interest in UFOs, aliens, psychedelics, breathwork, all of this stuff, this is something you want to check out. Join us at the second annual Contact Modalities Expo, Harmonic Ascension. It's the Midwest premier event for people curious about consciousness, science, mystery, and personal transformation. This is held at the stunning Lake Lawn Resort. It's absolutely beautiful. This is going to be happening May 1st through 3rd, so the weather is going to be absolutely beautiful out there. And that's once again in southeastern Wisconsin. It's just a short drive from Milwaukee, Madison, and Chicago. This is a 3-day experience. It brings together some of the most fascinating minds and experiences you're going to find everywhere. And I really ask that you all go over to contactmodalitiesxpo.com, contactmodalitiesxpo.com, because you could just go there to the front page. You're going to see all these wonderful people who are going to show up and really make a great experience for everybody, and also talk about all the stuff that they're going to be offering over those 3 days. There's a lot to talk about there, 4 stages, and you're just going to have a great time. So once again, contactmodalitiesxpo.com. I also want to say, before we get back to our guests, that tomorrow night at 6:30 p.m., Ghost Stories and Beyond, we are going to be talking about Legends Unseen that goes beyond stuff like Bigfoot. Actually, if you have a chance, you should listen to my interview with Lyle. You got to listen to Lyle Blackburn because it was an amazing episode talking about his new book, but also talking about monsters and all that stuff as well. And we're going to be covering that at Ghost Stories. Starts at 6:30 at Billy's Bar and Grill in Anoka. And it's $10 to get in, but food you have to pay for, but it's going to be half off burger night. You can't lose with that. That's for sure. And that's going to go from 6:30 to 8:30. It's going to be a lot of fun. Come on out there and join us. Now, the book we're talking about tonight with author Tim Rayborn is called The Scary Book of Valentine's Day Lore, 50 Terrifying Tales of Romance from Around the World. Folks, if you want to get this book, you can go to your local bookseller and see if they will order it. And if they don't have it already, you can get it a lot of places. I'm just going to quickly say as well that GhostBoxRadio.com, Ghostbox Book Club, is an Amazon affiliated link, which helps the show out greatly. And we really appreciate anyone going there. But just get the book however you want to. Tim, where are other places that people can go ahead and pick up the book?
I mean, yeah, it should be available at any of the online shops, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of those. Yeah, and local bookstores. It may be carried. Sometimes they'll have it. If not, they can certainly order it for you. So, yeah, and any of the places you would find any book that anybody might hear about on the show, you should be able to find it pretty readily. So, yeah.
You know, just, and you know, I mean, you're such a big author now. You're everywhere.
No. Unfortunately, no.
Oh my gosh! You know, hey, you never know. You never know. But I mean, you keep writing books, which is good. I mean, they keep asking you to.
Yes.
So that's nice. That's something.
Yeah.
No one's asked me to write anything, so
I'm useful, I guess. You know,
I'm useful to society. Yeah. No, I'm happy to hear that. Now, once again, the book is called The Scary Book of Valentine's Day Lore, 50 Terrifying Tales of Romance from Around the World. And we want to talk a little bit about ghosts and urban legends, because there's some amazing chapter titles with that. And one of them is A Man's Horrifying Blind Date.
Oh, yeah.
I think that might be the topic of that chapter. I'm not sure.
But it's just one of the sections. It's an urban legend, and it's a good one. So yeah, it's not particularly bloody, and it's like a pretty. It's more amusing, but it's also nightmarishly amusing. So we could talk about that one. We've also got The Hook, which is one of my favorites, and some great ghost stories. So I'm happy to read through a few of these. As I said, the stories that I investigated weren't about monsters so much. What I found interesting were things in mythology, like bloody, horrible, tragic endings in mythology, or bloody, horrible, tragic endings in history. There's some really terrible ones there, and murder and revenge and greed and all of those sorts of things, all of which are, but since this is a paranormal show, we'll focus a little bit more on the ghosts and the urban legends. And if you want to read about the others, they're all in here. So it's I tried to group them that way. This one is ridiculous. It's an urban legend, and if it didn't happen, I wish it had, just because it's
I wish it had.
Yeah, it's okay. So there are many versions of this legend. This one is appropriately updated for the modern world, though it seems to be set in a time before exchanging pictures online was the norm, and people were more likely to remain anonymous. You remember that back in the good old days of the 90s, when you didn't have to share your life online with everybody and everything. So yeah. However, so a young man is lonely and goes looking for love on the internet, and that's his first mistake. He ends up meeting someone in a chat room. Remember chat rooms?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
For young people, those were things those old people did back in the 90s. So,
meanwhile, on MySpace, yeah.
yeah. Get your CompuServe email in your AOL.com. You've got mail. You used to get those CDs every month in the mail. They would mail you the 50 free hours, and whatever. So
we thought we were on the cutting edge of technology, didn't we?
We were at the time, but didn't help this guy, unfortunately. So he ends up meeting someone in this chat room. He and this other person hit it off right away and start writing each other privately. This back and forth goes on for some time, and it all seems to be going well. They keep conversations light. They don't tell each other much about themselves. Always a sensible safety precaution online. Finally, they arrange to meet in person in a public place, again, for safety. In some versions, it's a cafe, and others, a beach. They set a time and a date, both excited for the big day. The young man has finally met someone he really connects with and might have a shot at building a relationship with. He's nervous, but he's determined to see it through. He showers, dresses up nice, fusses with his hair, etc. It's getting dark, and he makes his way to the appointed place, certain that he's about to meet the woman of his dreams. He sees her. In the distance, a woman stands with her back to him, but she's wearing just what she said she'd be wearing. In some versions, it's a nice dress. In others, it's a shirt and shorts and a shirt.
Mhm.
She seems to be fidgeting nervously. His heart is pounding, but he resolves to go through with it, and he approaches her. This is it. It's happening. As he approaches, he calls out to her, using her username, as they'd agreed. She turns around excited, flashing a big smile. Her eyes widen. His eyes widen. He can hardly breathe, and he's at a loss for words. He starts to shake and gets lightheaded. Finally, a single word escapes from his trembling lips. Mom?
Oh my God, that is great.
So, there you go. Did it happen? It could have. Did it? I don't know.
And now when you thinking back to what you just said before you read it, I wish this happened.
Yeah.
I hope this happened. That's dark. That's the dark part of the story. I think his first mistake was thinking that love is real, but I mean that's,
right,
that's
yeah.
Oh,
That one's silly and ridiculous. There's some other good ones. I'll do another one here, and then we'll move on to ghost stories. One of my favorites is The Hook, and you've probably heard versions of this. This is very popular. There's many variations on this classic urban legend. They all involve a young couple in a car. You can already see this is already like going into Friday the 13th type. Sometimes they're driving through a remote area, or more often they have parked the car on a cliff overlooking town and having to have some privacy while they make out. They have the radio on, and the news broadcast warns of a dangerous serial killer that's on the loose. Everyone should lock their doors and stay safe. The young woman wants to leave, but the young man says they have nothing to worry about. And here's where many different versions of the story pop up. A popular one has the woman asking to go home after hearing something hit or scrape their car. When they do get back to her house, they notice either scrapes on the back door or they see an actual hook hanging from the door handle. Alternately, the young couple hears the warning and the young man brushes it off. She sees something in the trees, so of course he gets out to check. Of course he does. Against her wishes. He sees nothing, but when he comes back to the car, he finds her dead, brutally murdered with hook slashes all over her, or the hook embedded in her chest. One variation has the couple driving through the woods when the car breaks down. The man goes for help, again against the woman's wishes, and she turns on the car radio while waiting for him to come back. She's startled by the sound of something thumping on the roof and tries to ignore it, but eventually she gets out to have a look. She's greeted by the sight of the killer sitting on the roof, holding the man's severed head with his hook and slamming it repeatedly into the car. Sometimes she sees her lover's body hanging from a tree. Overhead, his hands scraping against the car roof, or he's hanging dead by his neck and it's his feet bumping against the roof of the car. Some say she leaves to go look for him and finds his body nailed to a tree. She screams and turns to run, only to slam right into the hook-wielding maniac. Or she falls asleep, waiting only to wake up and see the killer leering into the window, her boyfriend's severed head in his hand and the car keys dangling from his hook, and so on. Now, if these stories all sound like a scene from a Friday the 13th film, you're not wrong. These kinds of serial killer-spiked urban legends are classic and seem to have originated in America in the 1950s, when more and more teenagers were able to own their own cars. These stories, which many kids probably thought were true, served as a warning to behave responsibly and not give in to temptation when alone with their boyfriends or girlfriends. After all, in the world of maniac serial killers on the loose, love and lust can be deadly. So it's an interesting cultural phenomenon, but we think they started in the 50s and 60s.
You know, that is really interesting because we were talking about how so many of these stories were always about trying to teach something.
Yeah.
And this is a 20th century version of that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the don't go into the woods, the wicked witch lives in the house kind of thing. Very much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Do not. I don't even know how to finish that sentence, but we all know what I'm getting at here. You know, just stay calm with each other, right?
Yeah.
Don't fall into any sort of fastidious sort of whatever. But yeah.
But it is interesting, and they show a cultural shift. These kinds of things didn't exist before teenagers got cars, so it came along with that as a thing. And there the whole, like any urban legend, there are people that were swear they're true. They were told to them by the proverbial friend of a friend said this really happened to someone they knew. So it's and yet you find excuse me, variations of them all over not only U.S. but the world now. And so it is interesting how they take on a life of their own, and they're kind of modern myths and modern folktales in their own way. But people often do insist that they actually really happened, and yet no one can point to the actual incident where this actually really did, the original story where it did happen. So it's fascinating how they kind of spring up.
Any evidence to point to a Catholic priest coming up with the story of the hook? Because that's the whole thing of like, don't do anything you're not supposed to do. And
yeah, I think it's just the general nature of the culture of the time, to be honest.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's great. Wow, that's what a great learning actually from that, because it really does kind of put a bit of a spotlight on something that, if once again you think about some of the stuff and you think that either it's not super old or it's really old. People are doing that sort of thing, but that it's still happening relatively recently.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's in fact, I'll skip to this one since we were talking about this. This is a blend of urban legend and modern ghost story. It's the story. It's a Japanese. You know me, I love my Japanese ghosts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nobody does ghosts like Japan. The Grudge, the Ring. Those things are just horrifying. The vengeful ghost, and this is one of the classic ones. But again, interestingly enough, it seems to only date from probably the 1970s, which is, you'd think this was like an ancient thing from medieval Japan from the 15th century or something, but there is no real record of it before then. And then the question becomes why. So there's two: either it's cultural, or the person who died, who is the ghost, only died in the 1970s. So you take your pick. It's one of those two. But this the story of Kuchisake Onna, who's also known as the slit-mouthed woman, where you can see where this is already going. So Japan has no shortage of terrifying ghosts, which often take the form of young women who were wronged in life now eternally seek vengeance. Kuchisake Onna, the tragic ghost in this entry, is most definitely one of these, and she's particularly horrifying since she met her death in a terrible way and seeks to do the same to others. The legend tells of a young woman who suffered mutilation at the hands of her jealous husband. Some versions say that she was the wife of a samurai who was always going off fighting in battle. See, so there's the older connection.
Yeah.
She grew lonely and began to have an affair with one or more men in their hometown. Eventually, the husband heard about her infidelity, and in a fit of rage, he sliced the corners of her mouth open from ear to ear with his razor-sharp sword. So we're kind of getting into like Dark Knight Joker, Heath Ledger territory here with the big, the smile. This horrific attack left her so injured that she soon bled to death. Another version of the legend said that she was mutilated by a woman performing surgery on her who was jealous of her beauty. In either case, the dead woman was not through with this world. She now roams the world looking for people to suffer as she did. She's a spirit of vengeance, called an onryo in Japanese. She travels about with a cloth mask over her face and carries some kind of sharp instrument in one hand, a knife, a sword, or even a pair of scissors. You can already see where this is going.
Yep.
She will approach an unsuspecting victim and ask them, "Am I beautiful?" If the person says no, she will kill them on the spot, usually by stabbing them or slashing their throat. If they say yes, she will pull off her mask to reveal her sliced up face. Her mouth is sometimes said to be full of sharp teeth, and she will then ask, "Even now?" If her victim says no, she will kill them. If they shriek or cry out in any way, she will kill them. If the person somehow manages to say yes, she will slice open their mouths from ear to ear, the same as was done to her, leaving them to bleed to death. What, if anything, can the victim do to escape such a horrible fate? There are several things, actually. Sometimes answering yes to both questions will make her leave the person alone, though she might show up at their house later to finish what she started. Another answer, weirdly, is to tell her that you're late for an appointment. She will often simply bow and apologize, so she's polite at least.
At least, yeah.
A third tactic is to answer that she is average in appearance, which will confuse her and hopefully give the would-be victim a chance to run away. One can also throw money or hard candies at her and she will stop to pick them up. So, this strange tale of a woman wronged by a lover might date back to the 17th century, but it seems to have actually come about in the 1970s. an urban legend that some people took to heart. But there are people that absolutely swear that they've seen her in like old abandoned train stations and construction sites and such, and they had to run for their lives. And the interesting thing about this is that there are versions of this in America. With you've heard maybe things about the grinning man or the grinning woman, people with massive grins with teeth way larger than could possibly fit in a human face. It's not quite the same thing, but they often follow people and make them very uncomfortable and such. And I was talking with another podcaster a few months ago about this, about the legends, and they often show up in sort of the Appalachia, of course, and Virginia and such, where people will see these figures standing on the side of the road with these enormous grins that a human face couldn't possibly have. So it isn't exactly the same, but it strikes me as a similar kind of thing. They're just like this slashed open mouth with these great big teeth, and there are people that genuinely swear they have seen her. So yeah,
I love the fact that you could throw money or hard candy at her. Like go to the candy store, load up on your Brock's candy, and but then again, it's like her asking all these questions and there's no way out. I think is a fantastic metaphor for love in general. There is no right answer, quite frankly.
It's different for every, and her reaction will be different every time too. I love I'm sorry, I'm late for an appointment. It's a very Japanese thing. I have a meeting to go to. Oh, terribly sorry. I'll come back and kill you later.
Exactly. Just so polite and just let you go along your way. Yeah.
That's a very Japanese thing. You can see that the culture is sort of like the meeting is hugely important in that sort of thing. And if you are late for a meeting, nobody, even a vengeance ghost, is going to interrupt you from getting to your meeting. So it's fascinating. Yeah.
It's so fantastic. I need to get another break in here. Let's take the break. When we come back, let's talk more ghost stories and other things as well. If anyone has any questions, put it in the comments. This is a lot of fun, and I hope you're enjoying it too. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to GhostBox Radio on AM 950.
Okay, question of the day. What do UFOs, ghosts, breathwork, and psychedelics have in common? Find out at the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through 3rd in Wisconsin, the Midwest premier event all about consciousness, life's mysteries, and all the stuff that blows your mind. 4 stages alive at the same time with world-class experts and tons of hands-on experiences. Hosted by Jimmy Church, you'll be doing UFO Skywatches with Chris Bledsoe, workshops with Dr. Diane Hennessy, Lidu and Dahlia from the Telepathy Tapes, a group quantum hypnosis by Sarah Bressman Cosme. You'll learn telekinesis, telepathy, dowsing rods, plus God helmet experiences, a real live seance, and live performances galore. Whether you're brand new to this world or knee-deep in the rabbit hole, this is the place to explore the unseen, the unexplained, and the undeniable at the Contact Modalities Expo, May 1st through 3rd. Curious? Learn more at contactmodalitiesexpo.com.
Greg Bakun here. Like you, I love good, fresh, delicious food. So I want to tell you about this treasure in Roseville called Maverick's Real Roast Beef. Maverick's has the best roast beef sandwiches I've ever had, made fresh every order. Add fries or onion rings dropped in the fryer when ordered, and you have a winning combination. Maverick's Real Roast Beef has a lot more than roast beef, so check out their website, mavericksbeef.com, or check out their restaurant on Lexington in Roseville. Greg Bakun here. I've been talking for a while about how spooky, fun, and fascinating the Minneapolis trolley tours are, but now there's big news. The Candlelight Ghost Tours now begin at the historic Pillsbury Club, a beautifully restored haunted mansion once owned by Charles Pillsbury himself. Believe it or not, the interior is nearly 200 years older than the exterior. How is that possible? You'll have to come out and find out. Before or after your tour, stop by the on-site market featuring a curated collection of handmade goods, artisan crafts, and locally inspired treasures. Perfect for picking up a keepsake to remember your haunting adventure. You'll also find exclusive spooky merchandise from Tales of the Crypt and Elvira. Then, climb aboard the climate-controlled trolley as we travel through Minneapolis' haunted hotspots, uncovering ghost stories that locals would rather keep buried. The mansion is restored to perfection, and there is no better way to spend an evening. Visit MinneapolisTrolleyTours.com for tickets and more information. Greg Bakun here. It's nice to get out of the Twin Cities and take some travel excursion to some great locations. Minnesota has so much to offer, which is why I love traveling down to Wabasha and staying at the historic Anderson House Hotel. Opened in 1856, this beautiful hotel offers comfortable accommodations, has a delicious restaurant, and even a speakeasy in the basement to unwind with a drink. Located next to the Mississippi River and on Main Street, there is a lot of sightseeing and shopping to do too. To get more information, go to theandersonhousehotel.com. And join me tomorrow on GhostBox Radio with Greg Bakun. We are going to have a conversation with John Santa from Santa Paranormal. John is he's pretty incredible, actually. He is a paranormal TikTok influencer. He has over 1 million followers, and I'm going to kind of talking about what does that even look like? What kind of existence is that? He goes live every single night and does paranormal investigations, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like, how it is. Like me, he's a big fan of Spirit Box. We kind of do it differently, so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. That's going to be great. Thursday, since we're coming up on Easter, we're going to have a conversation about the Shroud of Turin, which is one of my favorite topics. We're going to have Robert K. Wilcox on talking about it and a book that he's written about it as well. Friday is Casual Friday as we head into the Easter weekend. But I do want to say Thursday afternoon, I am a guest host for the Matt McNeil Show from 3 to 5. And we're going to have a great conversation over the 2 hours. And the first hour, I'm going to have on George Feltenstein, who is the man who runs the Warner Archive Collection. That is part of Warner Brothers. It is a Blu-ray 4K DVD studio, and they're restoring a lot of our favorite films, and I want to talk about the restoration process. It's one of my favorite things. We're going to be doing that the 3 o'clock hour. The 4 o'clock hour, we're going to have on a local meteorologist legend, Dave Dahl, who had been doing this for quite many years for KSTP Channel 5. We're going to be talking about severe weather awareness because that's coming up. And the thing about that is, as it happens, we're probably going to be doing this while there's a winter storm going on over here. We're supposed to get about 6 inches. So it's going to be great. Dave Dahl is amazing. George is amazing. And quite frankly, I am too, to do the Matt McNeil Show. So we're going to have fun with that. So that's Thursday, 3 to 5. We are having a really fun conversation here with author Tim Rayborn. We are talking about the scary book of Valentine's Day lore, and within it, we're talking about 50 terrifying tales of romance from around the world. As we talked about earlier, you can get the book really anywhere, and if you have a place you go to that you get books and they don't have it, more than likely they can order it for you. We always ask people to shop local, support the local bookstores. I'm also going to once again say, if you want to go to ghostboxradio.com, GhostBox Book Club, we do have an affiliated link with Amazon, and that just helps the show as well. But please, whatever you want to do, this is a great book worth getting, so please continue to support the work that Tim is doing as well. You know, Tim, with the last one, with the Japanese lore, you know what it reminded me of is La Llorona in Mexico. Not quite, but a little bit.
I haven't actually think about her too. So yeah, it's a variation on that. There's I don't know if it's in this book or if it's somewhere else, but I have done. I think it's in another book, but yeah, I have done the thing about her, the vengeful spirit. That's a pretty common trope throughout the world. So yeah, the woman wrong who comes back for vengeance. Absolutely.
It's not a trope. It's not a trope. It's not a trope, Tim. It's real life as well. So
I mean, the story is the story.
Yeah.
Well, there's a Venezuelan ghost called La Sayana who does the same kind of thing as well. So yeah, it comes back with a machete, So yeah.
Well, and the thing is too, I mean, and once again, we talk about a little bit of that love and madness, right?
Yeah.
And sadly, sometimes we see incidents, and it's both men and women who fall in love, and maybe, and whatever happens, they end up being murderers, or they try to murder, or they try to hurt, and there's that comparison that we've been talking about earlier. And that's, what's interesting about so many of these is that they're obviously, everything comes from some kind of truth, doesn't it?
Yeah. And some of them come from actual historical stories, and things like that. We don't know if the Slipmouth woman ever existed, or if the Hook killer ever existed. There are some. I mean, we have some ghost stories that do seem to be possibly based in fact, and that those I always find interesting, where somebody has died in a place but they're still there. And there's a story of Stony Hollow Road, which is not too far from you, down the road in Iowa, actually. So it's called Stony Hollow Road, and it has a reputation for being the most haunted road in Iowa. You may have even talked about it with somebody before. Located outside the town of Burlington, near the Illinois-Iowa border. It's right down. I've been to Burlington. It's a nice little town.
Okay.
Stony Hollow Road has been the subject of many a creepy ghost story over the years. This rural road looks normal during the day, but at night things start to go bump, at least according to some who have experienced the unexpected while traveling along it. There's a point on Stony Hollow Road where a cliff rises up on one side of the road, and it was there that in the 1800s a tragic death occurred. A young woman named Lucinda was engaged to be married to a man she was devoted to. The two had arranged to meet at this very spot, and while Lucinda made sure to be there on time, her fiancé was nowhere to be seen. As time wore on, she got more and more worried. For whatever reason, Lucinda became convinced that he had jilted her and run off with another woman. Overcome by grief, she climbed to the top of the cliff and threw herself off, falling to a tragic, gruesome death. And then the tragedy only worsened. As it turned out, the man hadn't run off with anyone. He'd simply been late because his cart had gotten stuck in some mud farther down the road. Lucinda had killed herself over nothing. There's a kind of Romeo and Juliet sort of, feel to this.
Yeah.
Because of this pointless death, her spirit couldn't rest in peace, doomed to haunt the stretch of road, appearing to naive travelers in the dead of night. Many have claimed to have seen the ghostly form of a woman up on the cliff or at the roadside, but usually Lucinda's spirit won't show up unless summoned. To do that, someone must call out her name 3 times in a row. If someone does this, the would-be ghost hunter might catch a glimpse of her on the cliff or nearby. However, this is a dangerous game, for if Lucinda shows up and she lays a rose at the foot of the summoner, it means they will die the next day. That's a pretty big risk to take, but of course it hasn't stopped many curious people from going to Stony Hollow Road and pressing their luck in the hopes of seeing something supernatural. Such a glimpse, while extraordinary, doesn't seem worth it. She clearly is a bit impetuous in matters of life and death. But again, many people have claimed to see a woman at night standing on top of this large rock there. So yeah, make of it what you will. Did she actually exist? We don't know, but there are ghost hunters that have claimed they've seen her there.
It's so interesting, and I didn't even think about the Romeo and Juliet aspect of it, but the last commercial we played before coming back from break is the Anderson House in Wabasha, Minnesota, and There's a very similar story about a woman who is in the tower part of the hotel waiting, and she could see the Mississippi River from where she is, and she's waiting for her lover. And I don't quite remember the story because there was a big sinking on the Mississippi River, and I don't remember if he never showed up and she killed herself, or she thought he had died on that tragedy with the boat and he killed himself. But that same sort of like love loss and there's no point to live, and I'm going to finish it. I mean, it's very interesting.
Yeah, I think these themes show up again and again, and they cross over into the urban legend territory as well. Like there are tropes and themes that show up repeatedly in these things. But what I find interesting is when something like this is associated with a place, and yet people say that they have actually seen things. That's when it becomes interesting. We can all accept that the Hook guy might actually be an urban legend, but you have these repeated stories over and over of these kinds of things. Like somebody thinks someone's dead, and so they kill themselves, and all right, this has been done 1,000 times. But then they actually see something there, like at the house there or on top of the rock. So what are they seeing? Is there an energy about that place that is kind of cool? Did it really happen, or is it a collective belief of people seeing it that is actually almost willed it into existence? So I find really interesting that there's a lot of open questions about that. So do we create these things ourselves through our belief in them, or are they from another source? It's really fascinating.
That is, and that whole group think is I think that's a very real sort of something that people shouldn't necessarily be like, no, that can't be, because there is something. I think there's something to it. With the Anderson House, I think it was that there would be like a light in the tower where she would be that people would see again, that sort of thing, like not necessarily her, but a light or something like that.
Yeah. No, it is interesting. Yeah, I found that interesting. It's like, are some of these hauntings created by the people that view them rather than being independent? I don't know. It's an interesting. Yeah, hard to say.
It really is, and it's always interesting because so many of these stories are based on relationships that have gone wrong,
Yeah,
and in that sort of thing, and often, and the other part of it too is very often with the story you read that it's a miscommunication that what she thought actually didn't happen at all.
Right. And these happen all over the world. I have another book coming out next year about a kind of strange and dark history of food and drink. And one of the things I looked at was haunted wineries, haunted distilleries, restaurants. And some of the distilleries and such have very similar stories, like a woman waiting for her lover and he never shows up, so she kills herself. And now they hear footsteps in the, in the fermenting rooms at night, or they hear things get knocked off shelves, or whatever, or they hear her name and stuff. So it's some of these are like stories that are centuries old, especially if you get into Europe and other parts of the world. So, how long have these things been there, and do they have their own independence? Were they created by the people that believed in them? Are they real? It's really fascinating. So, yeah.
I would point you to the direction also of Dr. Paul Lee, who lives out in the UK. We've had him on.
Okay.
And he's written 3 books on haunted hospitality in the UK.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Cool. No, I'll look those up. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Now we have under 2 minutes left here. You talked about the book that one book. Is there anything else that you're working on?
I mean, as I say, I have this book on food and drink in a sort of dark. It's not a scary book, but it's not the same series, but it's another thing about like sort of legends and myths and all sorts of great things about food and drink throughout history, going all the way back to Sumeria and ancient Egypt. That's coming out. That'll be out next year sometime. In the next month, I have an unofficial Star Wars book coming out, which will be a lot of fun. So it's a tie-in to the new film that's coming out in May. So that's just, I wrote a little thing that goes along with that. And this summer I have, I don't know why they're releasing it in July, but they're doing a deluxe version of the Scary Book of Christmas Lore with like a nice hardbound cover and some like a ribbon, bookmark and such in it. So they're doing a Christmas in July thing for that for some reason, but that'll be like nice. So yeah, a few things on the way. So it's cool.
I forgot about Mandalorian and Grogu coming out and coming up soon.
Yeah, about 2 months to be out, and so they're going to start the big push for tie-ins and stuff at the end of April. So yeah.
Oh, cool! That's gonna be a lot of fun.
It will be, yeah.
Once again, folks, the book is called The Scary Book of Valentine's Day Lore. Really, I think it's worth your time to seek out this book and other books by author Tim Rayborn. They're always good, and you can get them all sorts of places. So please go check that out. And I really love it. I love having you on. I really appreciate you taking the time and joining me tonight, Tim.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. I always love being here. It's great. Happy to come back again when something else is ready. So.
Fantastic. We'll be back tomorrow with John Santa. Everyone have a good night.